Hello, welcome to the Jacksonville History Show. I'm Emily Rutherford Lisska, an Executive Director of the Jacksonville Historical Society, and I have special guests today. One, of course, is Maarten van de Guchte, and Maarten is well known and beloved as the former director of Cummer Museum of Art and Gardens and of the Beaches Museum and History Center. And he's here today to update us on some history projects and his tenure at the Beaches Museum and tell us what he's doing now in the greater Jacksonville area. And later we have Sandy Arpin. Sandy is a volunteer and is functioning as the president of the Mandarin Museum and Historical Society, and they have amazing history projects going on down in the Mandarin area, which is already so historical. So Maarten, hello and welcome to this show. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you, Emily.
And you have had quite a tenure running nonprofits in Jacksonville, Florida. First the Cummer Museum of Art and Gardens, and then later moved to the Beaches Museum and History Park, where your projects were stellar. And you left recently during the summer as their executive director, but in your wake, which is sometimes maybe a little derogatory, you left a series of just wonderful projects, which I know they herald and are enjoying down at the Beaches Museum now. And I'd like to talk about some of those projects, and also I want to mention what you'll be doing in Jacksonville in the future. So let's start with what you plan to do now as you move from the world of museums.
This city, the city of Jacksonville, has been very good to me. I've received so many great opportunities in leading the Cummer Museum, and then most recently for the past 4 years the Beaches Museum. So I got a great view into the history and the culture of this greater metropolitan area. And as a Dutchman, as a European, before coming here, I was not that familiar with this part of Florida. I had my own preconceptions about Florida, but particularly Jacksonville, with its very deep history, was this beautiful, ideal stomping ground to explore world history with its American and European aspects, and the history of exploration. Later on, the history of the Industrial Revolution, the history of the spread of churches in this area, and so on and so on. So it gave me a beautiful perspective. So coming back to your question, when I decided after 40 years in the not-for-profit world and 25 years as a museum director, Illinois and then Florida, I decided with my family to stay in this area. And the context, the environment that gives me the best opportunity to continue doing what I love to do is Jacksonville, and particularly the real estate market here in this part of Florida. I'm seeing so many great locations. I'm meeting so many wonderful people. The market, of course, as we all know, is coming back quite strongly at the beaches. So it's a beautiful moment to be active there, to do my thing, without abandoning my love and passion for history and art.
And when we've been talking before this show, I can tell indeed you have not abandoned that love for history. And while you were more recently at the Beaches Museum, you were responsible for so many major changes, and I wanted to start a little bit chronologically, if we can. Now, is there something else you wanted to say about what you were doing now before I move on? Because I wanted to start with some of the things you had done at the beach, and we have an image of a fascinating image of a dugout canoe. And now this image, here it is, it's up on the screen now. The interesting thing is this image is about 300 years younger than the actual canoe that you were able to obtain for the Beaches Museum. Would you tell us about that canoe and its source and a little bit about its age?
As a museum director, you're always marked in a way by the collection that you inherit, that you are building, that you are growing. So when we were the recipient of a gift of a Timucuan dugout canoe, some 700 years old, it was a defining moment in our presentation of the history of this particular area.
And does it look a lot like the canoe that the viewers are
Very,
seeing
very
now?
similar, very similar. So it's a flat dugout canoe. People would paddle it standing up like a contemporary paddleboard.
As they're seeing it now.
And of course, you have to remember back then in Florida, going over the river or using a lake as your surface, transportation by water was the most ideal form and the most practical form of getting around.
About how long was this canoe that you took in that's similar to this one?
Ours is about 12.5 feet.
Oh, okay.
The average size is about 15 feet.
Okay.
It's made of hard pine. They would make them by burning out and scraping away the inside of a hollow tree trunk. And they could make a canoe. We know this from ethnohistorical and ethnographic descriptions in approximately 5 to 7 days.
Wow.
One single person, faster with 2 people.
And this canoe that you secured for the Beaches Museum is about 200 years older than Ponce de Leon's arrival in Florida. It's just remarkable when you think about that.
Absolutely. The state of Florida has this great record. The largest number of preserved dugout canoes found anywhere in the world have been found in the state of Florida. The number is, I think, close to, I believe, 11,000. And most of them have been found in what's called, geologically speaking, the Central Highlands of Florida.
Tell me about the Central Highlands of
The
Florida.
highest peak, and I've been there, in preparing for the show. I went to, I think it's called Sugarloaf Mountain, not too far from Orlando.
You're teaching me some stuff right now.
Which I
That's
think
great.
is 843 feet above sea level. And it's
Wow.
quite interesting. Our canoe, I call it ours, it was a private gift, was found near Keystone Heights in Clay County, so very close to where we are. It had been reported to the professionals when it was found in 1989. For a very brief time, it was on display at the Ball School in Jacksonville in the early 1990s. Then it went back to the private owner, stayed in that person's garage, basically, until it was gifted to us about a year and a half ago.
Now, other than going to the Beaches Museum and seeing this canoe, do you know where people from Northeast Florida could go to see large collections of canoes in Florida? Do you have any idea? I don't know. I just thought I'd
Large
ask.
collections are difficult to be found. There was a beautiful exhibition at the Florida Museum of Natural History about a year ago in Gainesville. At the moment, there is a very interesting canoe at the museum at Huguenot Park. What am I talking about? No, not Huguenot Park, where the Ribot Monument is, Fort Caroline.
And what we're going to do now, speaking of that, I can always look at you for in-depth knowledge, always. We'd like to look at, you brought such a great perspective to the French in Florida. Right now we're celebrating 450 years of the French Fort Caroline when it was established here, really roughly about this time exactly 450 years ago. And here we are in the dead of summer, roughly June 30th of 1564, excuse me. So we're going to take a look at a beautiful poster created through your advice and knowledge, and you did borrow a little art here, but this was your design through you, and it's up on the screen now, of René de Laudonnière, who was the captain of the voyage, the French voyage, and for a long time, the commander in charge, the governor of La Caroline. And talk a little bit about the French in Florida and what you do. We have very little time left, so we'll let you summarize that.
On reflecting on, the exhibitions that we organized, my colleagues and I at the Beach Museum, this was an outstanding show. It was a collection, a private collection, made available by Michael Fisher and Dr. Linda Fisher of Jacksonville, of Theodore de Bry copper engravings and original maps of Florida. And that collection gave us the building blocks to really talk about the French presence here in Florida, which I think much has been written about it, but it's such a rich material. There is so much still to be gleaned from that particular document, whether it's documentary-wise or in a graphic sense, the visual evidence, coupled with what we have learned through archaeology about the actual remains. So that particular presence, first in 1562 for 5 short days, but my goodness, those were the days where the French, in utter amazement, meet the local Timucua, or as we now say, the local Mocama, at their turn also in utter amazement, looking at one another, exchanging gifts. Beautiful, fascinating moment in what I call world history.
And you told the story beautifully at the museum, and that was truly through you. I want to get to something, a move. It's actually this move that people are going to remember you for. It is the beautiful chapel that recently, under your direction, roughly about a year and a half ago, you correct me, moved to your complex. I see the image up on the screen of the move to the Beaches History Park. And tell us a little bit about the chapel and getting it. That was quite a coup, Maarten.
Well, so much in our lives, I believe, is serendipity. I happened to be the director there when we were approached with that very simple, straightforward question: are you still interested in acquiring the old St. Paul's by the Sea chapel? And we had a quick meeting of minds with board members, and of course everybody said, of course. So there was this beautiful chapel built in the so-called Carpenter Gothic style in 1887, sitting on Florida Boulevard in Neptune Beach, and we were able to raise the money and bring it to Jack's Beach, about 2.5 miles voyage that took 7 long hours. It was an impromptu parade, everybody coming out, because who sees this spectacle of this small chapel driving across, 3rd Street in Jacksonville Beach? It was unforgettable, and I think the high point of my career at the museum.
Oh, certainly.
To be able to move a chapel and then to go through the whole documented historic preservation process and make it to come back into use and give it back to the community.
And I'm sorry we don't have the after image here of just what you did and the people at the beaches did to meticulously restore St. Paul's Chapel. It is beautiful, and it's very much beloved and used, and people just need to go down there, go to the Beaches Museum and History Park, take a look at these wonderful projects. We are sadly out of time. I just want to work in. I know you're not leaving history, but do tell us, Maarten, where can people find you? What company are you with now?
I've joined a great company, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, here in the Beaches office, and they can find me on my own website, Maarten sells AtlanticBeats.com.
Well, that's pretty good. Well, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for loving Jacksonville history and preserving it for us. And if you stay tuned, we'll be right back with Sandy Arpin of the Mandarin Museum and Historical Society.